Okay, so I just finished listening to a Life Force call. Not exactly sure what the title of that Life Force call was, doesn't matter. Some points that I would like to discuss. Sorry, got a little handsy there. Okay, so if you don't know what Life Force is, you can type into your browser lifeforce.global and you'll come up with an option for a website that is Lifeforce. I think it's lifeforceglobal.cc restoration, but that'll get you there. So they also are kind of run in tandem with Speak Project. I think that was a .com. Speak Project has a lot of older information. Then we have United Network News, if you don't know what that is. United Network News. I'm not going to get into marketing spiel about that because that's not my goal. Okay, but what I want to talk about that goes along with the message of love, this channel, is some of the takeaways that I would like to go back to and reiterate, touching on from this call. They were speaking about an interview that was done on Project Camelot. So projectcamelot.com is Carrie Cassidy's site. Carrie Cassidy is well known in the ufology community. She's been interviewing whistleblowers for a long time, people that were in these projects that were behind the scenes that very few people knew about. It was kind of like a tell and die situation. And I know for some of you that might be hard to imagine, but that kind of thing can go on. Even though we would like to believe that it doesn't make it so. If you've ever been angry, you know the potential is there for not so loving things. And I would say, along with a lot of this stuff I've been talking about in videos recently, was with this new conversations with God, is we first must know ourselves as that which we are not. When we come into this experience, we forget who we are as love, as the real children of God, as pure love. So we forget who we are. And then we must know ourselves as that which we are not before we can remember ourselves as what we really are. Because we're living in this polarized world where there is an up and a down and a left and a right and a hot and a cold. And so first you learn the things that are not of love, which you are not. And when you suffer long enough, so that sounds like something the Buddha would say. When you've suffered long enough, or maybe from the Tao, when you've suffered long enough and you learn that really doesn't feel good, and you learn that, well, because it doesn't feel good, that must not be for me. And if it's not for me, then that must not be who I am, okay? Once you know that you are not that, you start to look for what it is that you are until you remember who you are, because you always know. Sorry, it's funny. It's funny because, it's a process. Okay. So, in this talk, they were speaking about a man named Bill Wood who was interviewed by Carrie Cassidy 9 years ago. And if I remember correctly, the clip that I heard from the interview, he said it was before 1997, so maybe 1994-ish, maybe around that time frame, that this that he had the experience which he was talking about in the interview. which was he was brought in to correct a problem. That was one of the things he did. He was like a problem solver in regard to timeline convergence. And this has to do with string theory, has to do with the ebb and flow of what we perceive as time. Okay, so he spoke to there being a convergence point, which it all came down. So if you imagine these layers, okay, and it's almost like an infinity symbol, and repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating in a constant flow. Anywhere that those lines kind of cross over each other and make this, you see here's a convergence point where the two lines come across each other, okay? So what was happening was in Project Looking Glass, and these are real things within the shadow side of the military, let's say. So, you know, there was a time when science and religion were not separate. Well, there's a reason. because all things are energy, and energy doesn't fit into a specific category. Well, a lot of weapons, etc., are, you know, all this stuff is energy, or produced from, by, for that reason. So understand that spirituality and military, spirituality and science, though we might try to separate them, you just can't, because everything of this world is energy. That is energy and spirit. You know, spirit is energy. Anyway, if you don't like the sound of this so far, you don't know what Project Looking Glass is, you don't know any of these things, please, 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 I welcome you to shut this off. It's not for you. Okay, but I'm going to continue on. So this Bill Wood was called in to fix a problem. The problem was that when they were using the Project Looking Glass technology, no matter what they did, the outcome was the same. So it was, my understanding, an effort to get the experience from one timeline to another timeline, and to keep us on certain timelines that benefited certain people, organizations, whatever you want to say. I'm not going to go too deep into that. Okay, so they brought Bill Wood in because they were trying to shift the timeline, where the timeline was headed. And he said that, you know, no matter what they did, it wouldn't change. It was absolutely inevitable that we were going to end up on, I'm not going to say another timeline, but what I'm going to say is the outcome was inevitable. No matter what they tried to modify or manipulate within the system, the outcome was inevitable. And so they bring him in because they're like, fix it. Fix it. Make it so that we can change this projected outcome. And it wasn't possible to do that. The idea is that God wins. What I'm going to say is, we are love, birthed from love, for love. Okay, sorry, I had to move you out of the sun because the phone was getting too hot. I was trying to do too many things at once. Drop the pen. Okay. So what I said last was, we are love, birthed from love, for love. Why does this matter? Why this matters in validating this idea that God wins is this. Now, I'm not trying to be political, and I know this was used for political means, and that is not what I'm saying this for. I'm saying this because love wins. Love and God, Christ, these are all synonymous. It is all love, okay? Love wins. And that's why it is important for me to report on it here on this channel that has been named The Message of Love. And that is because it was only a matter of time. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to stop clicking my pen. It was only a matter of time before we became aware of that which we are. It was only a matter of time. It was inevitable. Oh my gosh, Neo! It was inevitable. That we would remember that which we chose to forget. What does this mean for the world as we know it and for humanity? What that means for the world as we know it and for humanity is no longer will the lower vibrations energetically, they cannot coexist with the energy that's coming in. And that was inevitable too. There were lots of attempts. That's a viewpoint. That's a point of attention. So there are those who will look at the world and the history, and they'll look at what has gone on here, and they'll say, oh, I can see where the manipulations were and where the attempts were made to slow down the awakening process. And if you're looking for that, you can find it. Absolutely. If you want to be angry, you can use that to fuel anger. What I'm going to say from the place of spirit is, it happened the way it needed to happen. It was inevitable. We are love. We were always coming back to that remembrance of love as who and what we are. There was never a doubt. God wins. Always. Love will always win. Because the choice to not return, to not remember, was never a choice. Which is why we were safe to do whatever we did here. Which was why, God, as our divine parent in that sense, never needed to intercede in anything that went on, because we could never be lost. We could never be harmed. The body isn't real. So that which was real was never at risk, ever. Okay? So when I say God wins, I mean we always would return to the love which we are innately. So I just want to touch on these couple things. I will say that, someone can look at the world and what has gone on. Again, I'm going to refer to something Christ was cited saying, in that you find what you seek. Seek and ye shall find. Which means you find what you seek. If what you seek is absolute truth, you will see above the mire that is the world as we have known it, in the occurrences that we believe have taken place. And unless you are seeking absolute truth, you will not see above, beyond those ideas, which are really warped translations of what's really going on. Okay. But those who have clung to the experience that was less than that of love, those that have really liked staying in that energetic vibrational level of something other than love, yeah, they have manipulated and done things to try and slow down the process of the awakening, of us remembering who we are as the love of God. Because those low vibrational energies just cannot stay. They cannot live. They cannot exist in the energetic field that we are moving into. They can't. So they needed to slow that down to maintain their livelihoods. It's that simple. They just needed to maintain their livelihoods, and that was the only way they could do it. You know, it's as simple a concept as, if my body cannot digest grass and all there is to eat is grass, eventually my body dies. Okay? It's the same thing in the energetic field. So if your energy is super, super low, you're not going to be able to cohabitate with, and that happens in families too. You're not going to be able to cohabitate with someone whose energetic level is, okay, there's low and high, and I hate to use it that way, but so very off kilter, because you're gonna clash. Well, so where we're going in this energetic sense, they just will not be able to function. They just can't exist within that energetic frequency. It's like the human eye. I'll give you another example. It's like the human eye. Only certain aspects of what is really happening in the world is visible to the human eye, and we call it the visible light spectrum. There's a lot going on that we can detect with other types of equipment that we can't see, right? So, I mean, for example, your eye cannot detect things at a molecular level, though it is there. I mean, you use a microscope, you use, you know, these amazing magnification devices, and you know that things are going on at a tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic level. We can't see it with our eye, it's still happening, okay? So, not sure why I got off on that tangent. Let me pause a second. Sorry, there was a little bit of a glitch there, and I'm not sure what it was, so I'm just gonna let it be, because I don't really understand why I went off on that tangent. But suffice it to say that things that are perceivable to one mind are not necessarily perceivable to another, and so here we are. But it was inevitable that we were going to remember the love that we are. That was inevitable. So that shift, there are those who, many of us fear change. I have been one in this lifetime for sure that has feared change. Not so much now, because I look at things differently now than I did before. But, you know, it has happened the way it has happened. And it is just now that we are kind of being catapulted into these this new. I'm seeing timelines jumping. They say it's not happening, right? They say it's one timeline, but I'm seeing things happening every day. I've seen 3 different strange, and it just happened here with my video. I was recording a video. I'm talking about one thing, and my mind totally jumped to something completely different, and I'm like, why did I make that association? And even when I went back and watched the video, I was like, okay, I understand each one as an individual concept, but not sure how they relate, and I'm just gonna leave it that way because it's a bit odd. But you know, recently I've had conversations with people that look at me like I have 3 heads. Like, what are you talking about? Well, in my reality it happened, and this was how it happened. And in their reality, it seems like it didn't happen that way. And so we're, you know, and the way I explained it to a client is, we're manifesting things so quickly now because we are manifestors, we are creators. We're manifesting things so quickly now, and we all always, at every moment, are living our own reality. So what's happening is, I'm creating my reality, and my neighbor, my friend over here, is creating her reality. And they haven't had time to merge and synchronize because it's happening so quickly that the events that are taking place, it is as if it happened for me, but it didn't happen for her. Even though, in my recollection, it was both of us having a conversation. So these things are really kind of bouncing around right now, and that's another validation for the other video I put out recently, saying that there may become a need for us to have these communities that are somewhat segregated from each other until until the frequencies level out, because our realities are not playing out the same way, and it's all about the energy and where we're vibrating. So the energies truly are manifesting differently until our energies are functioning more harmoniously, or vibrating at a similar pace, or whatever, however you want to see it, okay? So that's what I'm seeing. I'm actually seeing that happening in the world right now. So word of caution. If you and your wife, you and your husband have an argument because you said something, they didn't hear it, vice versa, it is very possible that in their reality, it just did not happen, or did not happen that way. Okay? We need to be very careful right now to make sure that we're activating and utilizing and expressing as much love and compassion for each other and patience as we possibly can, because things are in such a flux right now, and it's so encouraging though. Okay, so it is this bit of confusion that we are experiencing is an indication of the speed at which things are coming to pass. Things are amping up really, really fast. Okay, so please be mindful in your communications. Please be mindful and be compassionate with those that you love. We must work together to get through this time, and to get through it as well as we can, with as little hostility and negativity as possible. So I'm just going to put that out there for now. There's more I want to record, but I'll have to do it later because I gotta go. I gotta go be with the little people right now. So in peace and love, may you be blessed until next time. Okay, so one last thing that I want to include in this video came up today from a client of mine who was talking to me about, I could tell that while we were together, she was rushed. I could feel it with everything in me, and I could see it. And I asked her, I said, I feel like you're very rushed. Do you have somewhere you have to be right now? And she communicated to me that she's been very busy. She's been working a lot of hours. She's been giving a lot of herself away to others, and that she's been feeling like she's being taken advantage of. And I want to speak to this because this happens. My input to her was this: whenever we feel like we are being taken advantage of, it is because we are giving more away than what is healthy for us in that moment. There's a couple of different things it can be, but this is the way I communicated it to her. I said, so when you're feeling like you're being taken advantage of, it is because you are giving too much and not doing enough self-care. The reason I say that is because in a normal situation, we give from a place of love without expecting anything in return, and the joy is in the giving, okay? When we feel resentment after having been giving, it is because we are not being filled up ourselves. This is never anyone else's fault. We are choosing to give more than what is loving for ourselves in that moment. And that's really what it comes down to. So, sorry, dog's barking. So, sorry. There is a balance. One second. being loving also means being loving to ourselves. So there is a balance. When we do too much for other people and that it feels like now a sacrifice to myself, that's when the resentment comes in. That's when the feelings of being taken advantage of come in. But it's not anything anyone else is doing. It is what we are, the choices we are making for ourselves that are creating that feeling. And so there are other reasons to feel like we're being taken advantage of, but it all comes back to the choices that we are making and who it is that we are putting ahead of someone else. So anytime we're not giving ourselves enough care and we're putting someone else's needs above our own, there's going to be that feeling of lack, loss, resentment. Okay? And it comes from whenever we feel that, the first thing to ask is, how am I not being loving to myself? What am I doing? What choices am I making that feels unloving to me? And a lot of times it's, because, I'm really tired and I need rest. But instead of resting the body, I am doing X, Y, or Z. Okay. It might be things around the house, like I'm feeling really tired or I'm not feeling really great. But instead of giving care and aid to the body, I am doing laundry, or I am washing dishes, or I am, mopping the floor. Or what I really want to be doing is reading text, meditating. But instead of doing that, I'm doing these other things that then this brings up resentment because I'm not being true to myself. It's not something anyone else is doing to me. It's a choice that I'm making, you know. So then you're left with, is it possible to have both? Is it possible to be loving to myself and still have these things accomplished? Can I ask for help? And if no one is available to help, you still have a choice. Can that other thing wait? If it can wait, do the thing that feels loving for yourself. The dishes will still be there. The laundry will still be there. So there are certain things like mowing the grass maybe that it's really hard to put off because, you can only do it when it's nice outside, and the grass will continue to grow, so it gets more difficult. But, these are choices that we make from the adult place, the adult place that says, I'm qualified to make these choices. And I will take responsibility and accountability for those choices. And that's really what it comes down to, is truly being accountable for our choices. And knowing that the things that go on, first and foremost, stem from what we have done to facilitate, to cooperate, to produce these other things. We are a part of, we are participating in everything that's going on. We are a participant. How am I participating? If I don't want this to happen, how can I change my participation? What can I do to make this something different? So I just wanted to add that in there because suffering, right? Whenever we feel like we're suffering, it's because we have made a choice that's not resonating with ourselves, even if that's choosing not to do what it is that brings us joy. Eventually, even in my own life, I'm not the best housekeeper, and eventually the laundry catches up, and the dishes need done, and these things happen. But I really find it interesting that if I let it go for a time, I always get the motivation to do it, even if I don't beat myself up for not doing it. when it must be done, when it hits a certain point, I just have the motivation to do it. And that is what I want to do in that moment. And I don't have to fight myself to do it. And I don't have to feel like I'm sacrificing anything in the doing of it, because in that moment, that is what I want to do. I want this to be accomplished. And so, and okay, I heard the song, to everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time. Okay, so there's a time for everything. And it doesn't have to be right now if it doesn't feel right for it to be right now. It is okay to listen and trust these things that are happening within us. It is okay to let the laundry go a day. It is okay to read text from a book instead of washing the dishes. You will wash the dishes when the dishes must be washed. It's just kind of the way it goes. If I want something bad enough, eventually I'm going to take a trip to the grocery store, to get that thing, because at some point the desire to have that thing is going to be more than the desire to stay home and read my book, for example. Okay, so I'm going to create a movie, put all these little bits and pieces together, and try to get this uploaded. So I hope this message finds you well. And peace and love. May you be blessed.